All right. Good evening, everybody.
Or good morning, depending
Or
on
good
when you're
morning,
watching this.
depending on when this is going to be uploaded. My name's Anthony, and this is.
Chris,
Are you about to say your last name?
yeah, it was just Chris for here. So
Good.
let's just say, hey, welcome to Headlocks and Handoffs. This is
Yes.
our podcast, our video, whatever you want to call it. We're going to be on here talking about a lot of wrestling stuff. And
Well, what makes this is unique is the fact that the name being Headlock and Handoffs, referring to our passion of wrestling and our passion for running. So we'll get to the running part eventually, but we want to start off with something that everyone loves and has loved when they were kids growing up until obviously grown adults. So we decided to start doing this podcast because we wanted to do something that is a little bit more entertaining for everybody. Obviously, with what's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of people sitting at home. So not a lot of people are listening to your normal podcast, which are normally on the radio, and not actually seeing the people talking or doing something like this. So this is something obviously going to be a little different because a lot of people are home working. I know I'm home working. I know Chris sometimes is home working.
it just depends on the day. That's all.
Depends on the day. So something that you can view that'll entertain you, that we can discuss certain things. And what's even more unique, like I said, you're probably not going to find a lot of podcasts that are going to be about wrestling and about running. Not that they really go hand in hand with each other, but we'll make it work. Plus, we got to play the part. Obviously, we have the shirt back there. That once fit me, doesn't fit me anymore. And then the Wu-Tang shirt that Chris is wearing as well.
Of course. My good friend got this. You know who got this for me?
Who got that for you?
Rich from MSG.
Ah, Rich from MSG.
And we call him Rich from MSG because we went to a wrestling event at MSG and he was working security. He's like, "Oh yeah, come on in. We're good."
Yeah, come on down. We'll put you in the front row, which we didn't get a chance.
No, I
don't even remember where we were sitting that night either.
I think he got us worse seats actually.
Like I could put you in a really bad spot. Yeah, we'll take that one.
Yeah, there we go.
Sounds good. I can see nothing now. Great. So we're just going to sit and we're going to talk about a lot of that cool stuff like that, a lot of stuff that we grew up with. Obviously, Chris and I have grown up, being the same age, have grown up in the same time frame of what we used to watch when we were watching wrestling when we were smaller kids until what we were doing now and watching what's on TV now or in the last, couple of years that we've been watching. Obviously, we grew up watching people like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair in their prime, and then watching transition of the newbies of the time being The Rock, Stone Cold, a lot of these guys, Shawn Michaels, and a lot of these guys grow through their career as we grow up, and then watching them wrestle and put on these tremendous wrestling matches, all these different championship matches, Royal Rumble matches, WrestleMania matches, just stuff that we grew up watching and constantly will watch still now, being whatever, 20 years removed, 15 years removed, doesn't make a difference. So it actually, it's pretty cool because we're not going to discuss more of the today's wrestling, but more of what wrestling used to be and how entertaining it was when we were growing up.
Yes, I was going to say the stuff that we loved. And even as we go back, yes, there are some matches where it's like that was just horrible. I don't know what was going on. But there are still a lot of matches where it's like, I haven't seen this in 15, 20 years, and it's still pretty damn impressive.
But you look at that, and we're now, 37 years old? All right. And we were watching wrestling matches then. We're like, wow, that was pretty cool. But then we'll watch it now. We'll critique it a little bit because we've watched so much of it. And, before we get into that, we even do any sort of other introduction. So just a little bit of a background for both of us. So I was saying, Chris and I both graduated high school the same year. We didn't go to the same high school together. What was kind of unique was the fact that we both competed against each other. But I use compete.
Yeah, I was like,
very loosely line of words here because I always saw you from behind because you were always winning races, and I may not have been as fast, but I knew who you were. But that was kind of cool because we didn't really know each other then and didn't really become friends until later in the years. So, but then, like I said, I went to Mepham High School, and then I graduated from Adelphi University, and now I'm a teacher, a physical education teacher, and I'm also a coach as well. But again, we'll get into that as we go further in.
Oh, is that my turn
That's you,
now?
that's you, yes.
I'll learn from the
Well,
hot
there's
tag.
two of us, so I would hope that you would just, talk about yourself.
Now you speak. Yes. So as he says, I am Chris. I grew up in Valley Stream. Like Anthony said, we ran against each other, I think in high school, but I don't really remember him. Going to be completely honest. We were in different counties, in different classification, so we didn't really have that many head-to-head races. But I ran pretty much all through high school. Went on to run at Iona College up in Westchester. I had my 4 years there. Then actually went to CW Post for a year. Ran there, so I kind of have a good amount of running from there. I was getting pretty serious doing the running, kind of. I wouldn't really say semi-pro, but kind of like that. Was doing some road races, winning some money, so I wasn't, under a contract, but I was getting some money out of it, which is always nice. As a runner, you put in a lot of mileage, it's a lot of hours, and to get something back is helpful. And I'm actually, as I'm talking about this, I remember going up to the Providence race with you.
Yeah. Oh, we'll get into that. Don't you worry.
Oh, okay, all right, that's fun.
We gotta
That's
save
what-
that one. We got so much of that to talk about. We'll
All
wait
right,
for the
so-
funny part of that, but we got the wrestling part now. But
Yeah.
we'll dip into all that stuff. So obviously, everyone can see we don't have such a big budget here. I mean, I have a shirt draping down on the back of a mirror at this moment, and it is what it is. This is the first one.
Is this when we ask for donations or not yet?
Is this what?
Is this when we ask for donations or not
Yes,
yet?
this will. We'll have a GoFundMe page to afford better equipment. Maybe you can. Maybe we'll get better computers. Maybe a microphone in front of our faces instead of our headsets. Although you have a pretty good microphone there for
This is good.
podcasts and Halo games as well.
What games are those, like SOCOM Navy SEALs? Do you remember
Yeah.
that game?
I don't remember because I never played that one.
Okay, I remember that.
I was more Metal Gear Solid, but you didn't
Yes.
really need headsets for that one.
Yeah, I got you into
You know
Metal
about
Gear
that.
Solid.
I know,
Yeah,
and I'm
of
gonna probably
course.
start playing it. We're all over the place at this moment.
That's right.
So
So now the wrestling part.
So now the wrestling part. So we want to discuss what's upon us now. We're in a new year, January, and that means a very
Royal
important pay-per-view, the Royal
sorry.
Rumble.
But that's where I thought you were going.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
no, I mean, when you think the beginning of the year, a lot of wrestling fans are going to think the Royal Rumble because, in my opinion, besides WrestleMania being its own entity, Royal Rumble is probably my favorite pay-per-view of all time because there's so much that goes into it, and there's so many storylines that develop from there, and so many characters you see develop over the years, and then just people that just come out of nowhere, old wrestlers, guys you've never heard of, people making names for themselves. It's the coolest thing ever. I mean, at least to me, I think I love the Royal Rumble. It's my favorite time of the year.
I would almost maybe put the Royal Rumble above WrestleMania only because there's a lot more of the unknown. WrestleMania, you know the card, you know what's going to happen. In the Royal Rumble, it's, hey, there's 30 guys. Yeah, I know of 10, 12, maybe 15, but anyone can show up.
Yep.
And I think that's the part. I think that's why everyone tunes into it, really.
Oh, absolutely. I you know what? And if you think about it, I still put the Royal Rumble under WrestleMania because, like I said, WrestleMania is still to me it's its own thing. And
Yes.
You're right. And also WrestleManias have just gotten way too long. So I mean, I just can't really compare that. But I like Royal Rumble being itself. You're right. Like you get all these cool matches that we'll talk about, and you'll also get the Royal Rumble match, and especially now. You have the women's Royal Rumble matches now, which has been one of the coolest things to watch because it's just like it's from what it used to be to what it is now is just so night and day. But talking about the Royal Rumble, and I was talking to you, Chris, about that earlier in the day about how I love Royal Rumble so much that I look back at the 90s Royal Rumbles as being some of the best Royal Rumbles to ever happen. More so the mid 90s to the late 90s, I would say. But what we were pointing out before, some of those Royal Rumbles in the early 90s did have a lot of significance for years later.
Oh, definitely.
And I think we started out, we were talking about where you brought up just matches at the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
Like cool matches that happened that were just so significant, and so like you look back at it, you're like, oh, Wow, that was I forgot about that match. That match was pretty cool.
Hmm
There one
Yeah, I
that
was
you
say there was definitely a few that saw that stuck out, and I think too back like you said the mid '90s. I don't think that it was so much like we were naive and didn't really get the full picture. I just think everything was done so well back then, where like everyone was just fully invested in it. I feel like it wasn't just like, oh, as a little 8, 10-year-old kid, it's, oh, this big superstar, he's doing this, it's crazy. It's just everyone I feel was just into it and just was enjoying it all and loving it.
Oh yeah, and what's even you don't think about it now. Well, you think about it now, but when back then when you were looking at pay-per-views, there was only the major pay-per-views. That was it. Was it 4 major pay-per-views, maybe
Yeah,
5?
yeah,
You
the
have,
Rumble,
right
WrestleMania,
you,
SummerSlam, and Survivor Series.
now. Do you put the King of the Ring in that? Because that
Honestly,
became a pay-per-view, a major pay-per-view later on, but I don't think it was added until In Your House's pay-per-views were added,
yeah, when
right?
the In Your House came out like every month, it was just
Right, exactly. So
in
then that
between.
like it almost took the integrity away of like those major pay-per-views, and you were so much more excited when you were a kid because you didn't have a pay-per-view every month. The
Yes.
concept's cool, but the fact that you can watch the Survivor Series, which was a huge Thanksgiving pay-per-view,
Hmm
but then have all of December to just build up and almost pretty much all of January because the Rumble wouldn't be until late January anyway,
Exactly.
and it would just lead up to just like the road to WrestleMania. So you have January's Royal Rumble, then you have February, March,
And
April,
then yeah.
depending on when WrestleMania is, sometimes in March,
hmm
sometimes in April. You still have that long road, which was cool. Now you just get a bunch of pay-per-views and then, things change, or you want to see something that's set up, but it may not happen that way. Back then, everything was like, all right, you're going to wrestle this guy. And we know for a fact you're going to wrestle that guy because there's really no matches or championship matches in between anything. Like, you
hmm
know, no matches are created last second to throw on a WrestleMania card. WrestleManias were only 2.5 to 3 hours long then,
I
which was
know.
like a Monday Night Raw now. But they're putting all these quality matches in there, you know?
hmm
So,
But it's
but
funny. I like how you were saying there was just so much more of the build up for it, where they had a few months to do it. Where I remember on Monday Night Raw, you didn't have like actual matchups. It was Shawn Michaels versus kind of Joe Nobody, and then the next week it was Razor Ramon versus Scotty Nobody. Like it wasn't any kind of real match. The main event of each Raw was like an actual match of two guys that you knew.
yep.
Other than that, it was just, hey, we're gonna get out these main wrestlers so you can see them, so you can watch them. But that's it. They weren't going to do like a full blown actual match. So like you said, just having that whole build up time, I loved it. I
Oh
think as
yeah.
a fan, it gives you so much more to really go into. Unfortunately, now I think because everyone kind of needs just that immediate gratification, they don't have the opportunity to really do that. They need
Oh.
to put stuff out there, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, just everything.
Well, that's the
So
thing. You won't even see any of those wrestlers constantly through the week. So if you look back then when we were watching, and you have Monday Night Raw, Superstars on Saturday, Shotgun Saturday night, or Sunday Night Heat.
hmm
You have all these shows, but you're not going to get the same wrestlers on all of them. As today, you have, I mean, you have a Raw and SmackDown roster, but you'll still see a lot of these guys cross over
hmm
and obviously no one's touring now, but the wrestlers and the women now are probably working so much harder than all those other wrestlers like Hulk Hogan back then or Ric Flair because they can wrestle once. There's no pay-per-view.
yeah.
There's really nothing else. You're not going to see Hulk Hogan on like a Superstars Saturday morning. You know, they can see their families. It's a
hmm
little different now because you're traveling all the time. And even now, even though the WWE is only in one spot right now with no fans, they're just constantly there. It's still. I mean, I think to me, I think they had it a little bit more relaxed when we were watching.
No, I agree.
Just depending on who you were. You're a mid
Mhm.
card guy, you probably have a little bit more time off. But if you're a main event
Yeah.
guy like Shawn Michaels or Bret Hart or Diesel, Yokozuna, you're going to be on there a little bit more. But still, again, the traveling was probably not as significant. I mean, I could be wrong. That's just the way I look at it.
hmm
But
I mean, I've read a few books from guys like back then, and they were saying they would travel even more, and it was just worse conditions. Where like think of it like when you're that big, either over 7 feet or like 6'10", going into just a hotel bed, it doesn't really fit. You're trying to take a shower. It's like you can't fit into the shower stall because these wrestlers are just so big.
So,
they're larger than life.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like Andre the Giant is I don't know if that's who you're referring to, but like I think it was the Andre documentary that was like just the way that guy was traveling and how uncomfortable he was 24/7 anywhere he was. Was just I couldn't even believe it. But we'll probably touch on that one. That'll be another good one to talk about.
Yes. Did I ever say that I met him?
That you met Andre the Giant?
Yeah, did I ever say about that?
Is this a joke or is this like a real thing?
Yeah, because I never did.
Okay.
That's why I never told you.
I thought you were going to tell me like, yeah, back in '88, when I couldn't remember anything.
Of course,
like,
he's like, come here, let's go.
Come here, you. So we said we would talk about all these Royal Rumbles, and we jotted down a couple of matches, a couple
of non-Rumble matches.
Of non-Rumble matches, yeah. Yes. Let me clarify. So not the actual Royal Rumble match itself, but the non-Royal Rumble matches, championship matches, just non-championship matches. So I think we started in '93. So '93 was the year of WrestleMania 9 at Caesar's Palace. So that main event obviously was at that WrestleMania was Yokozuna, Bret Hart. So if we go back, we talk about that Royal Rumble. Obviously, we know Yokozuna won that Rumble because he had the opportunity to go to WrestleMania that year. So shocker there. And I think we're a couple of years removed from that Royal Rumble. So if I blurt out the winner, no one should pretty much get mad at me for that. But we were talking, and we said one of the big matches then, which I thought was interesting, was the Razor Ramon Bret Hart Championship match, because if you look at Razor Ramon, who is one of the, if not the best Intercontinental champion of all time, didn't really get many shots at any sort of major, like other major championships besides his IC title. So I thought that was pretty significant because how many matches can you list that Razor Ramon wrestled for the championship?
You're right. It's funny because there's none that really come to mind. You might have had a few other ones, but not too many. No. But I do remember leading up to this whole match, there was such a big feud between Razor and Bret Hart. And Razor's promos, he had amazing promos, by the way.
Oh my God. But even that, as they say, the promos back then were just out of this world. Like you can't even compare the ones like they used to do then to now. I mean, the now is great, but you're right. Like Razor Ramon was incredible at it. Bret Hart was incredible. Shawn Michaels. I mean, all these legends that were just so good on the mic and just couldn't just drew the crowd in, and that's what made it so awesome. And that's, like you said, the build up to it, because all they were doing was promos every week leading up to those matches, and that's what made it so exciting.
I remember he was talking about all the gold around his neck, and he's like, I need some gold around my waist now. This gold is going to match this gold, throwing the toothpick. He was awesome. Oh. So do you know how Razor kind of pitched that whole idea to Vince?
No.
So I either watched another YouTube video or read it somewhere, but Scarface came out at that time. So Razor went into Vince and kind of was talking like Scarface, doing all that stuff. And he said Vince just ate it all up. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to be called Razor Ramon. He's like, oh, I love it. And then it just kind of like took off. And the whole part was Razor would always talk very slow. And when you talk slower, people tend to just really, really listen.
Kind of like what you're doing now.
Exactly. And I've done that before, and you see people like they're like, oh, what is he saying? Because if you're talking really fast, you'll catch some of the words, but not everything. When you talk much slower, people listen to every single word.
And he played that character like so well. Like he was just, like you couldn't have picked the perfect wrestler to do something like that, because even when he became Scott Hall and not Razor Ramon anymore later in his career, he still kept that persona a little bit. Obviously, he probably was a little bit more aggressive as he became an NWO member and the Wolfpack member, Outsiders, like all that stuff. Like obviously, it was a little bit different, but he still carried that same character because that's what he was known for. Yes. And that's what he was put in the Hall of Fame to be was because of his character of Razor Ramon and not so much Scott Hall. But, you know, that I thought was I thought he was going to be a lot bigger, like into more, like I thought he was going to be more popular as the years went on, which he was, but I'm just saying long term before he left to go to WCW, because I felt like he just didn't spend as long in WWE as he should have. Okay. And I think maybe because he didn't have enough, like maybe he got fed up with not having enough opportunities, you know, to prove that he is a big name and to prove that, you know, he can hang with people like Bret Hart. But Razor Ramon's never going to be remembered for a match like that. He's going to be remembered for an IC title ladder match at a WrestleMania 10, like
100%.
Legendary match. Like that's it. Like that's his thing, you know?
Yeah, and that's why I think, like you said, he's one of like the top mid-card guys that didn't really get many title shots at all.
Right.
So it's kind of sad to see it, but like we're saying, he was such a big character, such a big persona that people gravitated towards him, I feel. You know,
but
the way he spoke and everything.
And like you're saying, like mid-card guy, like it's amazing because those mid-card guys and the IC title all go hand in hand with each other.
Yeah.
But the IC title is such a prestigious title. Like, why just stop there? Like, why just leave it to, not that other big names won it, but it was more prestigious to the ones there in that middle card, you know, like Razor Ramon. And then obviously we can throw out
another episode.
Forget another episode.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll have another episode. So also with 93's Royal Rumble was the fact that they had the debut of two big wrestlers, one of which that didn't pan out so well. The other one kind of did. And then it depends on how you look at it.
Exactly.
So I'll start with the one that kind of was like, whoa, and then kind of just fell off the face of the earth at that point. And that was the Giant Gonzalez. Who debuted at the Royal Rumble to feud with The Undertaker, who would eventually wrestle The Undertaker at that WrestleMania that year. But
I just remember Gonzalez coming out, or El Gigante, I think from WCW. He came out in his like caveman kind of suit.
I think it was like a monkey. It was almost monkey-ish because he had but he had like, it was like spandex, but it had like hair on the spandex. Like it was really weird. It was just, but I'm sure people were just more in awe that the guy was like 8 feet tall and just like.
Yeah, he towered over Undertaker. And it was like, wow, this guy might actually beat him. And it's funny because as we're kind of talking about Taker and El Gigante, Giant Gonzalez choked a Taker out at WrestleMania. And I feel like in the Taker's whole streak, that was the only guy that there's obviously been other situations, but the only guy that kind of had Taker like down and out. Yes, Taker got up after, kind of went to the back, but it was like that was Gonzalez like overpowered him. Yes, he cheated. He had the chlorophyll on the cloth or something, but
I remember that. Yeah,
I remember. I think it was someone that was commenting, probably Jerry the King or Bobby the Brain. One of them.
It was Heenan, Jim Ross, and Lawler. I think were the three. And I don't know. I would assume Vince McMahon was.
Okay.
Because he was still doing commentary then.
Okay. I just remember the Brain coming in backwards on the camel as he was getting introduced. Yeah, of course.
Or it might have been it might have been also Gorilla Monsoon.
I'm going to say probably Monsoon. I feel like Jim Ross wasn't there yet.
Yeah, you're probably right because I think it was Monsoon and Bobby the Brain still before Gorilla Monsoon became the interim president of the WWE at the time, or WWF or whatever. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. But that guy fell off the face of the earth. So Giant Gonzalez was like there, and then they didn't really do anything with him. You know?
That was it.
I guess it's kind of hard to kind of take the big guys like that and just like, how many of these big guys can you really have? Not that there was a lot then, but I mean, if you consider tall guys, but like big guys wise, if you had back then, you had Vader, you know, the Sultan, you had Yokozuna, you know, so.
No, you're right. But speaking of, because we kind of brought up Bobby the Brain, someone else had a big debut that day at the Rumble.
And that was?
Well, it was some guy. He came from WCW. And the reason I was wanting to bring him up, because I'm pretty sure Bobby the Brain Heenan came out saying the most put together person, or just the
Like the perfect, or not the perfect. That's obviously that's
yes.
not right. I forgot also. I don't remember
He,
yet, but it's along those lines of
he
like
didn't say the total package, but something
right.
like that. And then because that was his
Right,
other name.
right.
So the narcissist, Lex Luger, came out. And I remember it was like 6 girls holding up mirrors on the side. He just went out there flexing, and Bobby the Brain is just talking him up like everything. And it was kind of like, all right, he looks really big, but oh, that was it. He just walked out just to flex. Okay, I guess. All right, I guess. Cool.
Yeah, because he didn't
But
wrestle anybody, right?
no,
It was just his debut.
yeah, he strictly came out and that was it.
And it's amazing because he didn't spend too much time as the narcissist. Like, I don't think it lasted more than, so that was WrestleMania 9, right?
Yeah.
So that was leading up to WrestleMania 9. And then the following WrestleMania, he was wrestling for the title as Lex Luger.
The All-American hero.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it didn't last too long because I think it was July 4th is when he slammed Yokozuna.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what?
4th, yeah.
So that's like what, 6 months? 6 months removed from being the narcissist?
Was it even that year?
I don't remember. I want to say yes because he entered the Royal Rumble, and then that year with obviously when he and
it was that year. It was 93.
It had to be
because the next year, 94, which we'll get
to. 94 was when.
But he was already the American Dream dude. He was the American flavor Lex Luger.
Right. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool. But again, like another guy that didn't feel like very short-lived in the main event. And then the following WrestleMania 11, he's put in a tag team match with the British Bulldog, and like you kind of write him off from there.
Didn't
like
do much, yeah.
Which kind of sucks because he ended up shining really well in WCW.
Mm-hmm. So going back to that real quick, Heenan brought in Lex Luger to kind of continue the feud against Mr. Perfect. I don't remember who Heenan was managing before, but it was kind of like, hey, Luger is now going to come in to, defy the perfection. So something like that. And I think that's why he might not have mentioned Perfect, but that was really the main reason.
Yeah, so now that you bring that up, I definitely remember that. Mm-hmm. And again, like you look back at this stuff, you're like, oh, that was so cool to watch. Like, but then you watch these guys and their characters change in long periods of time, or in Luger's case, a very short period of time. Just I'm going to be this guy everyone hates, and then a couple months later, America's behind me. I'm going to take the Lex Express, and I'm going to the Royal Rumble, and then I'm going to WrestleMania.
Jeez, I remember being a kid and on like the highway, anytime I saw a Greyhound, I was looking. And at that time, they had some kind of name like that, like the American Express. Well, that's the credit card, but like the American Boss or something.
Right.
And I always like, oh, Lex Luger's there. I don't think he was though.
I'm gonna doubt that too.
He probably was.
So you brought up a really cool match, which actually stemmed into a WrestleMania match the following year, in '94. Was the Bret and Owen, the Hart brothers, against the Quebecers, which was a cool match. And considering that Bret and Owen were kind of feuding or kind of at each other's throats a little bit, and then decided, we'll put that behind us. We're going to go for the tag team titles. We'll do it at the Royal Rumble, brother and brother. We're going to do this. And then, what happens after that. You know how it
Yeah, I think Owen kicked his leg out of his leg or something like that.
Right. But do you know why?
That's a famous promo.
You know how it's set up and why Owen got really upset at Bret?
From what I remember, Bret could have made a tag, but he tried to put the sharpshooter on one of the Quebecers, but he couldn't do it because his knee was all banged up.
That was one of the reasons. Yes.
Okay. I feel like Bret was being selfish and couldn't tag it, or didn't want to tag in Owen, so Owen just let loose. So
that, and then I remember, it was how the match ended. Bret was walking on the apron across.
Oh, yes.
As Owen Hart was whipped into the ropes, hit Bret into the I guess the
barricade.
The barricade over there, and then Owen Hart was rolled up and match over, and that was it. There goes that, and that's when he came in the ring, kicked his leg out from under him, but we all know what happens later on in that, and we'll touch on that.
So before even going on, I'm pretty sure that the Survivor Series before that, is when it was like the whole Hart family. I'm talking like Brett, Owen, and then brothers Stu, Keith, and like Danny or whoever it was. It was just
Hart in that too? He had to have been.
no, I don't think he was actually, because I feel like it was Brett and Owen, and then 3 other just like.
I'm sure you're right. Like I could have sworn that. I mean, I thought that it might have been Jim Neihart just because obviously him being, tag team partners with him, but that makes more sense.
Because I feel it was like all the Hart brothers against Shawn Michaels and either 4 guys in a mask. I forget what they were named. It would have been like mask 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
And in that match, Owen was the only one that got eliminated. And he started kind of like something with Brett then. All the brothers were there to kind of like make it okay, but it was like a big deal. And that's, I think, kind of would also stem like there was some conflicts between them both. And then they were like, okay, no, January Royal Rumble, we're going to come together. This is best for the Hart family. We're going to be tag team champions. Yep. And then it was like, no, that's the last straw. That's it.
That was it. And then that just began like a whole feud. And I mean, I think a lot of really awesome matches between both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, and like later on. The other matches we were talking about earlier was they had the Yokozuna Undertaker match, the casket match, and that was you brought it. We were talking about it earlier. That was like one of the coolest endings because it just showed like how the Undertaker's character then, and then you look at him now, obviously after he so-called retires at Survivor Series this year, how dominant he was way back when, and how you explained it. You were telling me more about it earlier. Go ahead.
So when I brought up non-Rumble matches at a Royal Rumble, I always remember the Yokozuna Taker match in the casket because Taker was winning for a little bit. By the way, Yokozuna was so freaked out about the casket, and I want to say it was like Mr. Fuji, Jim Cornette, and maybe one more person out there like on Yokozuna's side. So as Yokozuna is going to put as Taker is going to put Yokozuna in the casket, 3, 4, 5 guys come out from the back. Like Bam Bam Bigelow was one, Diesel was one, Jeff Jarrett. And it was crazy because you're watching as a fan and you're like, where are these guys coming from? So 5, 6 guys come out. Yep. Taker beats them all up. Goes put Yokozuna back in. 5 more guys come out. And I just always remember at the end of the match when Taker finally goes in, it's a picture of Bam Bam Bigelow literally just laying on the casket like, oh, what's up? He's not getting out of this. Like, I remember that so vividly.
Like, what more can we possibly do? Like, he's in there. Like, we have to. Was there another one where they had to nail it shut?
They probably did. I don't think that was the one.
I don't think so either. I think I got to look at that. We'll save that one, but I got to find that one again. But yeah, I mean, like, you look at those types of matches. Obviously, those matches are made for the Undertaker, and to see him lose that match in that way, again, just showed how dominant he was, and how his character just completely just like you can when you thought wrestling and you heard the Undertaker's name, no one could touch him then. So like, you had to do anything and everything you could to try and take the guy down.
And that's why something like that, like, hey, there's 10 other guys out here beating up the Undertaker to put him in the casket. It kind of makes sense because the Taker could handle all 10 of them. It's like, all right, they have to do every possible thing. And as we were talking about before too, when Bam Bam Bigelow was on top, they rolled the casket out. And this was also when I think Taker was up on the jumbo screen on the Titantron doing his whole little promo laying down the casket. And then at the end, you see him actually go up through the Titantron and like his body comes out on top. And then there was not like lightning, but there was like thunder or something else going on there, which just made like super cool. And once again, at whatever, we're 10, 12, 13 years old, seeing it, it was insane. It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was just done so well.
You're looking at that stuff and you're like, wow, that was so cool. But we look at it now, we're like, kind of cheesy, but it worked. It helped us. It fooled us. You know, oh, is he really dead? Oh, he's undead.
Oh, wow. The dead man can't die.
Exactly.
But like you said, it's, it worked. And I think back then, people just bought into it. Like, that was it.
Yep. So, I mean, and then even after, it's so hard to not talk about the actual Royal Rumble. It's like, it's almost like a tease at this point that we're just talking about all these other non-Royal Rumble matches.
Yeah.
But like, these Rumble matches itself were so important and so significant. So just so like, obviously we're not going to talk about the winners, but I thought one of the coolest things I've ever seen, was at the 97 Royal Rumble. And I think we discussed this was the bigger one at the time. That was the one in San Antonio.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
So, and there was, I think they said 60,000 people were at this Rumble. It was in a huge stadium. It was crazy. Now it's the Royal Rumble match itself, but what I thought was one of the coolest things I just noticed when I watched it the other day was you had all these big names in there that weren't big then. All these names that were in the Rumble that would eventually be in such a big light later in their career. Like, for example, so the 97 Rumble was the first Rumble for The Rock, who was then Rocky Maivia. So obviously, anytime they came out, like, oh, the rookie, the Rocky Maivia, blah, 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 blah. And he's in the ring with Stone Cold, who just became Stone Cold within that year. And just watching them both wrestle, but sitting there not knowing, like, these two guys are going to have some epic matches at WrestleMania coming in the next 7 or 8 years. Like, and no one knows. Like, you don't know, but it was just so cool to see them both in the ring together and kind of like fight a little bit. But like now, as we're older, it's like, wow, those two. Do you think those guys had any idea where they would be in the company later on, wrestling at these WrestleManias, wrestling for titles, and even just like their last match together, just every single one of them was so like memorable, you know. I thought that was one of the coolest things I ever saw, was just watching that and those two just interact with each other. So cool.
It's just like that before they came ultra big stars, where they were kind of like that mid card, just scrapping to get ahead to make themselves even more known. And then, like you said, the next few years, they're the biggest guys in the company.
Right.
Which is pretty cool. You know,
and
I think
it's crazy because you look at those guys. We're talking about all these mid card guys. They were mid card guys. Like that's who they came out to be.
Yeah.
Like Stone Cold wasn't Stone Cold when he came into the WWE. I think it was the Rumble before, when he was the not the
Ringmaster.
The Ringmaster, yes. I totally forgot about that. I blanked on that one. When he was the Ringmaster, and he was like kind of like agile as a wrestler. Like he was like he wasn't like that dirty like southpaw like street fighter. He was just like, oh, here's the Ringmaster, Steve Austin.
Yeah,
that's cool. And then watching him in the Rumble the next year is Stone Cold. Austin 316.
Like, oh,
like what the hell just happened? And then looking at Dwayne Johnson, or I'm sorry, like Rocky Maivia at the time, and he only wrestled his first match at that Survivor Series that year, and then was, you know, I think he went on that WrestleMania. So that was 90. What I say? That was 96. No, 97. That was what, WrestleMania 13. 4 was 10, 95, 11, 96, 12, 97. Yeah, so it was 97. And Rocky Maivia went on to that WrestleMania that year to face the Sultan, and Rocky Maivia was the Intercontinental Champion. So like, and I don't know how old he was then. I think he was only like 22. Something like, he was still very young.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like he was still pretty young back then. Because, I mean, it was early on. I feel he got into it kind of like right after college, you know, within a year or so, probably.
Right. And you look at him then, like, he was kind of a big guy. But still, like, he wasn't nearly as, like, big as he was now.
Yes.
It was just, like, a whole different, like, and his persona was just so different there. It's like another one. Like, how does that character transition from what it was as, like, oh, hey, everybody, I'm the new guy here, to, like, one of the best promo guys ever in any wrestling, and the biggest name in general today. Like,
yes,
it's so crazy.
So I heard some story when it was The Rock versus Triple H, obviously years ago, and they had, this whole promo scripted to go, and Triple H was getting all annoyed because he's like, The Rock kept going off script, and Triple H didn't know how to respond to him because he's like, we kind of had this plan going, you're saying this, I don't really know what to say yet. And from what I remember hearing, like they went in the back and it was kind of like not too upset, but like, dude, like, what are you doing? And The Rock said he's like, they kind of said I can go and say whatever I want, but if I messed up and the fans don't like it, it's on me. But they would kind of like try it out, like take a risk with it. So I just always thought that was pretty cool. Where it's like, hey, you could try it, but if you mess up, you're gonna pay for it.
And how many times did he try it and never mess up? Really?
Still waiting for that first one.
Seriously, when you look at his promos, some of the funniest things I have ever seen.
Oh, yes.
I send you stuff all the time. You send me stuff. It's like, oh, remember this Rock promo? Remember that Rock promo?
Mm.
Oh, it was awesome at it. And you just watched as it got better over the years.
Yes.
When he became just The Rock and not just Rocky Maivia or The Rock is in Nation of Domination.
Yeah, those some good promos with the Nation.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's good. And that'll be another one we can talk about. We can talk about best promos and best feuds and all that stuff.
Definitely.
Actually, I don't know. How long have we been talking right now?
Do you have a timer going? Way to sound so professional.
there's no, like I said, low budget, very low budget here.
Low budget.
I have no idea.
I have my stopwatch over. It's about 50 minutes.
We're 50 minutes in?
Yep. I sent you a message around 9 o'clock saying, hey, you ready? So we're 40 minutes of timing.
Wow. That's, told you this was once we get rolling, there's no stopping us.
You are correct.
Especially when we talk about stuff like this.
Yes. The good old classic styles.
Well, that's what we love. It's the classic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of changing up gear a little bit. Mm-hmm. So we have what's called this day in WWE. So obviously today being what's today, the 6th?
Today is 6th.
There's a lot of cool stuff that, over the years, obviously, since, Monday Night Raw has been a thing on TV for, I don't even know, 30 years or almost 30 years?
Well, I was at the 25th year anniversary maybe 3 years ago.
I think that was 7 years ago. I think was the 25th anniversary.
7?
I think it was 7 years ago. I'm not kidding.
No way.
So one of the things in history was 7 years ago.
Hold up for a second, because I was there. I don't think it was that long ago.
All right, so it was. Hold on. Yeah, I think you're right. I think I was reading it wrong.
Maybe 2017 or 2018. Yeah, 3 years ago. Wait, what'd I say? 3 years ago.
You're right.
Listen, I was there. I got the chair. It's pretty cool.
Wait, you weren't in Phoenix, Arizona for it?
For the first one?
No, I was kidding. You're right. My bad.
I know.
That one's on me.
That's all right. I'll let it go.
So it was. I apologize. So it was Raw's old school 7 years ago, which was pretty cool matchup at that point and had ended in such like a weird way. So it was Roman Reigns with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins in his corner, obviously the Shield at the time, against CM Punk with the New Age Outlaws in his corner.
Okay.
So that I thought was kind of interesting because this is right before Punk left and left the WWE. Not too long after, I think. I can't really remember. But what was weird about the end of that was that Jake the Snake came out and
yes,
did like
I remember
a surprise return and then brought obviously the Python, probably not the same Python as he's over the years. Although
you mean it wasn't Damien? I heard Damien had kids.
Well, it could be the son of Damien.
Damien had triplets.
Damien. Maybe could have probably more than that. Anyway, it was a big snake.
So before we keep going, I remember watching that probably at your place, and I heard Jake the Snake's music, and I was going crazy because I knew right away. I'm like, oh my god, it's Jake the Snake! It's Jake the Snake! This is crazy. What is he gonna do? And then he goes out. Dean Ambrose was laying in the middle of the ring. He just draped the snake all over him, and like that was it.
What is
But
he
it was,
going to do? What do you think he's going to do? What does he have?
he has a
Yeah,
snake.
he has a snake.
Maybe,
So what else is he going to do with it?
maybe he's gonna go like, I don't know, talk to the fans or something. I don't know. Maybe high five some people. Like, yay, hey, I'm Jake the Snake. I'm here. Yeah.
Yeah, that could work.
Could be
The other
cool.
cool one I thought was not really a match, but it was the Triple H Scott Steiner 18 years ago today doing the pose down challenge.
Oh Jesus.
So obviously Scott Steiner we all know as the roid head with the muscle on muscle, the freaks and the peaks. Am I getting
He
that
had,
right?
oh yeah, he had amazing promos.
He's another.
And
His promos were better than his matches.
I guess you could say that.
I would say that. At least later in the years when he couldn't carry himself in the ring anymore, his promos were the only thing carrying him around. So, but
if I, wait, sorry,
yeah,
if I remember correctly, I think Triple H and Steiner had like a few different kind of like matchups like that. Like they had a pose down, a bench press, like lift off, an arm wrestling match. Like they were doing a bunch of things like that leading up until their big payoff match. And I just always thought like I kind of like seeing that stuff. It was just so different, and it's entertaining. I think.
oh yeah, it was just different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like one of the first. It's like still like I was saying, like people getting used to seeing like Triple H as not Hunter Hearst Helmsley, but as Triple H like big man Triple H.
Yep. When he split from DX to kind of make that like big person, like the bigger size, I remember hearing that he even said he's like, I didn't really lift that much more. He just trimmed down. Like he always had that size, but he was just thicker. He was bulky. Because he's like, no, I just kind of just lost some weight. I just, started to shred up, and that was it. So
yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. It's just you can talk about stuff that has happened so long ago that obviously there was no wrestling involved, but
yes,
just something different back then. And I think that's what was cool then, because in the early 2000s, they just were trying to start being creative about things and just do different like things like that. Like, oh, let's have a posing contest. Like, all right, that's different, but
it's not wrestling. But let's see how fans think about it. If they like it, if they don't,
right, yeah.
go from there.
And
Hey,
then the other one, which I thought was pretty cool, was the tag team championships were defended that night, and it was there was such a. If you look back, you're like, how are these guys tag team partners? Like in any shape or form? Like, so it's Lance Armstrong and William Regal.
Lance Armstrong, the cyclist.
Yeah, Lance Armstrong, the cyclist. Lance Storm. Did I say Armstrong or did I say Storm?
Yeah, he's winning Tour de France's, but before that, he was a tag team champion.
Before that, he was Canadian and about that big.
Yeah. Listen, we don't have a budget. No one is here to edit our stuff, so no one's feeding us facts. We have to just fact check each other.
That's it. Good. Thanks for catching that one. That would have been so embarrassing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So it was Lance Storm, William Regal, who defeated at the time, who were the tag team champions at the time, Booker T and Goldust, which I thought was one of the coolest tag teams because Goldust just kept pursuing Booker T. It was like, no man, you and me, man, you and me, we're gonna be partners. We're gonna go places. I think he did that. I think it was a promo where Goldust was wearing. I think it was later. I think it was probably around this year. Goldust was wearing The Rock's shirt.
Yes.
He painted his head in black, like hair, and then his eyebrows were black. And he was trying to have a Rock promo to like impress Booker T. And then The Rock came out and was like, yo, dude, what are you doing? Like,
I remember
that was Goldust was absolutely the best then. Like, he was absolutely the funniest. He was like the R-Truth of that generation of wrestling.
It's funny. Didn't they team up later on? Goldust and R-Truth?
That's true.
They were like two stepbrothers almost or something.
Oh, yeah. It was that might be something we might see in the next episode or so.
The next one.
Just remind me. So we've been on for almost pretty much an hour, right?
Yes, we have.
So about an hour. Remember when we said, oh, this will probably be like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 tops?
Yeah. We're pushing 2.5 hours.
And we didn't even touch on all the stuff for the Rumble yet. So that's even
Did not.
there's so much more stuff to talk about. So, but with that said, probably best time to end it now.
Yes.
Because
I think
we'll be here for like 8 hours just, and one of us is going to fall asleep on the computer here.
maybe both at the same time.
Probably because
But
we're getting old.
yes, completely. I think for our first show of Headlocks and Handoffs, it went very well. We didn't lose
think so.
reception.
Well, you know what? I would agree with you. And being that the only two people seeing this show right now is you and me, I think
Yep.
it went pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Now,
High five.
let's see what everybody else thinks eventually. So the plan here is I would assume we're going to probably upload this onto YouTube
Correct.
because we don't have the money to just, pay all these companies to upload it for us onto Spotify, into Apple Music and stuff. So we're going to start out nice and simple
Perfect.
and free for that matter. And then maybe we'll build from there. But I figured next time we talk about, when we're talking wrestling, we'll continue with the Royal Rumble. We can go over, which I thought was a lot of the cool commentary on some of the Rumbles,
Hmm.
some of the surprise entrances, obviously the winners, how they won, some of the guys that really stood out that didn't win. So, I mean, there's so much stuff that we didn't touch on yet that it's
definitely.
just going to be like,
It's Royal Rumble season, baby.
that's it. It's now the 6th. I don't even know when the Royal Rumble is this coming up. Do you know?
Pretty sure it's the end of the month on. I'm trying to look. But I will say we could actually have a really cool little topic of January, because if you remember, I made my wrestling debut in January.
That's right. Because
It
we
was-
had your celebratory debut at a restaurant in Babylon.
It might have been.
And then we asked the guys at the restaurant to put on the Royal Rumble that night.
Yep, because we watched it
yes.
right there.
Oh, don't worry. We'll talk about your wrestling career. Like I said, your resume is just slightly bigger than mine. That's fine. I do have a small resume of wrestling, but we'll talk about that another. So we'll save all that for next time.
Awesome.
For now, we'll say goodnight to at least this part. And then we will talk running in the next part. But for now, we'll say goodbye for the wrestling part, and then we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks,
talk
guys.
soon. Yeah, thank you.